All right, welcome to Touchdown Talks. I'm Spencer Taylor. This is going to be my Week 5 predictions video for the 2024 NFL season. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right on into it in the video. I'm going to start off by showing you my predictions for every game that we have going on this week in Week 5. We do not have all teams playing. As we are into Week 5, that means that we are at the point where teams are starting to have their bye weeks. So we do have 4 teams not playing this week, those being the Detroit Lions, Tennessee Titans, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Chargers. Those 4 teams will not be playing, and so we do not have quite as many games as we've had the last 4 weeks of the season so far. So there's a little less games to focus on, but that also means we have more time to focus on each individual game. But I do want to make this video a relatively quick one. You'll be able to see pretty much most of this video. I'll keep these predictions with my specific score predictions even up, so you'll be able to see them. And based off of those, you can go ahead and look at the lines and the over-unders, things like that, and you'll be able to see for yourself basically what I've taken based off of those scores. And we'll be able to see in a few days from now, we'll be able to see the results of exactly how my predictions have come to fruition and what I got right or wrong. Just jumping right into it, just going to look at a couple games, mostly primetime games, and then maybe one or two others. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we have the Buccaneers going up against the Falcons. I think this will be a pretty interesting matchup. NFC South divisional rivalry. 3-1 team going to visit a 2-2 team. These are both teams that are pretty chippy. I think these are the two favorites, or certainly in my opinion, these are the two favorites to win the division. The NFC South most likely won't have any wildcard teams, as it really hasn't in the last few years. Quite often, this division has been a competition of who can be, the best record and who can be closest to above 500. That's really pretty much what's won this division the last few years. So I think this division is getting better, certainly with these two teams, or at least both these two teams are good. So certainly, I think both teams have a chance to end up above 500. It's just a matter of which one is going to end up on top. So I think this game could have some major implications for the playoffs. But I do think the Buccaneers going into into Atlanta, I think it'll be a really interesting game. Certainly it's a Thursday night game, so we know how that goes. Unfortunately, Thursday night seems to be kind of cursed most weeks, so maybe it ends up going lopsided. If it does end up being lopsided, I'm going to say that if that's the case, it's probably because the Buccaneers are winning and they're getting out with a lead. But my prediction for this game is actually the Falcons are going to win it close. As you can see with the spread, the Falcons are favored by about 1.5. This line has kind of bounced around anywhere from 1 to 2. Is mostly the number I've seen. Right now it's right there in the middle at 1.5. I don't know what it'll be at by kickoff, but probably right around here is pretty safe. This game should be a pretty close one, as I said, but in the case that it is a blowout, I would pick the Buccaneers to actually be the one leading, just because they're a team that I think can, if you let them, if you let Baker Mayfield and that offense have a chance with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they can get some points on the board and get a lead and get a win that way. But on the other side for the Falcons, as you can see here, all 4 of their games this season have been close games, and obviously they're 2-2 overall in those and for the season, but I think they're the better team in a close matchup out of these two. As you can see, the Buccaneers have won the only game that they were in that technically was a close game by the end, but obviously they lost one game and that one wasn't a close game. So I think this one will be a close game. I think that's, especially for the Falcons, that's just kind of how their team is built. They're one of those teams that's built to keep games close, so I think they will go ahead and do that. at home. They'll get the win. It'll be a very small margin of victory. But I do think it'll be one of the better Thursday night games we've had this season. Going into Sunday, the first game will be early in the morning for those of us here in the States, as this will be the first game in London for the year. That's a bit of an odd wild card in there. As you'll be able to see, I do have the Vikings winning this one. I think they cover the spread and more. I still think this game quite likely ends up finishing within a touchdown as far as the victory margin. But I think, the Vikings at 4-0, obviously, compared to the 2-2 Jets, the Vikings just have a lot more going for them. I've made a video specifically about them and how much I underestimated them coming into the season. For the Jets, it's been reported that on Wednesday, Aaron Rodgers was limited in practice due to stuff with the knee following the game that they had against the Broncos. So, I don't know how serious that really is. Again, probably a good amount of it just precautionary, but, Rodgers is on the wrong end of a career to have, issues, any kind of injuries. He's not at that age that, an injury is going to heal overly fast. So even if it's not the most serious, obviously any kind of leg limitation isn't going to be good for him. He's already not the most mobile quarterback anymore at his age. And that's always been part of his game, is being mobile to some extent. Certainly not the same way as, Lamar Jackson, but still a big part of his game. So, and then the other thing for both of these teams, it is an international game. So as far as predicting a winner, that does add a bit of a weird wild card in there. It's always hard to know how teams are going to react to, the long travel schedule, the different time, body clock that you're going to have to deal with, all that kind of stuff. But I do think the Vikings are more set up to just win in general. I think they'll go over there. I think this will be a game that is heavy on field goals. A lot of the international games seem to often be that, which I know a lot of the international fans like, so that won't be a bad thing necessarily. So I do think it'll be somewhat close at times, but for the most part, I think the Vikings are going to feel well in control, and they'll get out of there with the win. And then with, of course, I'm going to touch on the Bears hosting the Panthers. I know for most everybody this will be a game you ignore. This will be a niche corner game that you don't watch, but obviously I'll be following it. For this game, Bears are favored by -4. I believe I believe that might be the best line they've had all season. Of course, the the Panthers are certainly the easiest team they've faced so far, and really the easiest team they're going to face all season. But that's not to say that the Panthers are going to be pushovers. They've certainly been playing much different since they started Andy Dalton, but they haven't been invincible. He did throw a pick last week, and the Bears' defense right now is doing really well against the pass. As you can see in overall pass efficiency, Bears' defense is ranked 4th. They're doing really well at creating turnovers. I mean, turnover differential. Anyways, the Bears are at 6th with turnovers. Panthers not doing too bad. They're exactly even. They're kind of middle of the pack there. But as I said, Andy Dalton did throw his first interception of the season last week against the Bengals, and the Bears are definitely going to be the best defense that Dalton and the Panthers have faced so far since Dalton started for them. So, this Bears defense, they're for real. I keep saying it. I think they're a top 10, at least top 10 defense in the league, if not top 5, at least in certain stat categories. So I think the Bears are going to, get some turnovers, at least 1 or 2. I think the Bears, they showed an ability to run the ball a bit more this past week against the Rams. I know the Rams are a bit beat up, but, also playing at home so far. I mean, Bears are 2-0 at home, 0-2 on the road. This is another home game for them. I think the Bears, they've got better chances at home this year, it seems, certainly. And I expect Caleb Williams and that Bears defense and the offense, again, running it a little bit better. Caleb Williams showing improvement incrementally week after week. I hope to see more of that from Caleb Williams. I hope to see with that the Bears run game improve as well. And again, the defense, if they can get an interception, maybe a forced fumble somewhere in the game, maybe 2 interceptions, I don't know. Certainly 1 interception is good enough. That's plenty to ask for. And as a matter of fact, I actually placed a bet just a few minutes ago on the over for Andy Dalton interceptions in the game. So, I'm betting him to throw an interception, but which I, personally think that's a pretty safe bet. I think the Bears get the win here. As you can see, not a huge margin of victory, 5-point margin, but that does have the Bears just barely covering the spread. I think they can do it. I know there's a lot of, sharp bettors that are taking the Panthers here, which for the number, it does make sense. At a 4, it is pretty common to take an underdog, certainly one with the Panthers, who do have Andy Dalton in at quarterback, who has gotten that offense looking pretty interesting. And again, the Bears have had their issues, so I certainly understand why sharps and certain people would be betting on the Panthers to cover in this game, but I don't think so. I think this is going to be one that, it's a have-to-have-it game for the Bears, and I think they'll take care of business, even if they don't cover the spread, but I think there's a chance they cover the spread in this one. I'm going to jump straight into the other primetime games that we have. So Sunday Night Football, this will be the Steelers, Cowboys. I'm predicting this to be a pretty close game. I think it could be a low-scoring game. I think the line, the over/under for this game at 44, I think that's about accurate. The Cowboys are really struggling in the run game. The Steelers also don't have the best offense, but they have a pretty good defense. I think the Steelers are going to play pretty well on defense. They'll keep it low scoring. I certainly think the Cowboys need to watch out. They need to, be worried. But again, they're not going up against, because the Cowboys have struggled at the run, and they also have had some issues on defense. But again, the Steelers' offense hasn't been too great, but Justin Fields has been playing pretty fine, and obviously he's one of the better running quarterbacks, so that is something that the Cowboys are going to need to look out for. If the Cowboys lose this game, I think it's going to be because Justin Fields and the running game that the Steelers have, complemented by the defense. I think that'll be the way for the Steelers to win it at home. I think this will be a close scoring game, and I do have the Cowboys covering and winning this game on the road. It's one that I think the Cowboys need, and the ending result will be that both teams come out of it both at 3-2. And then the final prime time of the week, of course, Monday Night Football. Finally, another week where we don't have a Monday night doubleheader. I don't really love Monday night doubleheaders. I don't like the way that they're staggered. They should be staggered even more so that we can watch one at a time. But for this game, I think this one will be a pretty close one as well. I know that the Chiefs are favored by 6.5, at least right now, but I certainly, if I was going to bet the spread, I don't know that I'm going to for this week, but if I was going to bet the spread, I would bet the Saints to cover. The Chiefs aren't usually the greatest at covering the spread, especially when they're favored by around a touchdown. They don't tend to cover that all that well. And certainly with losing Rashee Rice, at least for the near future, if not, going forward, they've got a lot of questions again at wide receiver and on that offense. So Chiefs defense is good. The Saints, obviously they've put up a lot of points on offense, but I think in the last couple weeks we've seen them start to get exposed a little bit. So I think this will be, and against this Chiefs defense with Spagnuolo on as the defensive coordinator, I don't think the Saints are going to blow the doors off the Chiefs or anything, certainly not in Arrowhead on a Monday night. So I think this will be a close game, and as the Chiefs always do, I've got the Chiefs finding a way to win it in a very close one. So that'll do it for primetime games. We've got a lot of interesting good ones going for the week. I think the most interesting ones that are not primetime games are these two here. Ravens at the Bengals, and then Bills at the Texans. Those ones are pretty tough ones to pick, in my opinion. For the Ravens-Bengals, I do have the Ravens winning that one. I think that one they'll win. Of course, sometimes teams off of big wins in primetime sometimes don't do so well the next week. And for the Bengals, this is a game that, they're certainly, don't have quite as good of a record. They've got, they started, they're 1-3, so obviously they might have a little bit more pressure to win and being at home. So certainly it's possible that this is a trap game for the Ravens and they end up losing this one. But I personally, if I did have to bet this game, I'm not sure that I'm going to bet it at all. But if I had to bet it, I've got the Ravens winning it by a field goal, which would have them just barely covering the spread, at least where it sits right now. But again, that's not a bet that I would be super confident in making. And then that final one I mentioned, Bills-Texans, that'll also be Sunday in that earlier slot. But one of the more interesting games. This one is a go either way game for me. And as far as betting goes, I think this is a stay away game. The Bills are on a short week. They had a tough loss last week against, it won't be a short week. They're off that big loss from the Ravens, and they'll be going up against the Texans, who, also had a rough week recently with the Vikings not long ago. So the Texans started out that first 2 weeks looking invincible. This last couple weeks looking not perfect, and showing some imperfections and some things that teams can take advantage of. And certainly both these two teams are favorites in the AFC. Certainly both are favorites to win their division. So I think this could be a very interesting game. Obviously, even the spread. This is basically a pick'em game. So, again, I don't know that I'm super convicted either way. I do have the Bills winning this one by 1 point, but that's the point. I could see this one being a very interesting game. Either that or one of these two teams comes in half sleepwalking. But I really don't expect that. I think this one could be one of the more exciting games of the week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a like rating on the video to help me in the algorithm, and comment down below what you thought of the video. Always appreciate and enjoy communicating with those of you who are watching, and I will see you in the next video.